So a few people have made videos like this one, but after all the item changes and nerfs, some things aren't true and I have a different opinion than most people. It's based on numbers, so try to follow along. Watch until the end and I think it will be worth it. Cat has a lot of different builds, and there are benefits for items that other items simply don't give. A direct comparison of AD versus AP doesn't make a ton of sense a lot of the time, because you cannot compare things like a dash, health, movement speed, to percent current health, a slow, lifesteal, or just raw damage. But we can try. The AD build of Bork into Kraken doesn't give you health, it doesn't give you a dash, it gives you very little other than a slow, some lifesteal, and damage. The entire idea most people will say about AD versus AP Katarina is that AD, you're stronger early, but you scale worse. Where do you scale worse? 1 item? 2? 3? 4? Before we compare AD to AP, we gotta compare AP to AP, because I have some words about the current most popular build according to u.gg. The build is not the most optimal build because you're getting a dash, you're getting health, you're getting some ability haste, and you're getting movement speed. But do you need more damage? Do you want to scale harder? I don't know, maybe you don't. But if you were to get pure damage in an AP build, how much do you need to get to give up 350 health, dash, ability haste, and the rest that these two items give you? I don't need to do testing to tell you that Nashor Rabadons is more damage than Rocket Belt Lich in basically every situation, even when you're building towards it, but I did anyways. I'm using combos from my last video. The dummy has 30 armor and 30 MR. I'm using these numbers because I took sudden impact off, and it's the closest I could get to a realistic AP comparison. So I tested out the damage for way too many things for way too long, and I came up with these numbers, starting with this. So Nashor is about 12% more damage, and yes, I am using the active on Rocket Belt. These numbers are more interesting when you point out that most mages, like Veigar for example, have 1259 health at level 9. So 12% damage could be the difference between killing him or not. You do still have Ignite, but what if he builds a Merc Treads or something? Your item choice could easily be the difference. The next page just adds sorcery shoes and your next component item. It's mostly the same, but I wanted to look at Sheen versus Blasting Wand in the Lichbane build path. It doesn't really matter. You should probably just get Sheen and Control Ward or health pots if you're building Sheen. But the Nashor build is still looking more interesting. Once you're at 2 items, Rocket Belt is getting crushed in terms of damage. 17% is a big difference. And this is without the additional AP from Dark Seal, Eyeball Collector, and with 30 MR. It should be higher than 17%. Just look at it. Rocket Belt is getting crushed. Are there any high elo cats doing this build? So I looked around a little bit. As far as I know, pretty much only found Irisu on EOS. His Twitch will be in the description. Here's what he said about Nashor's Tooth on Reddit. As a completed item, Nashor's does more damage than Lichbane in essentially every scenario, even in short trades. You get so many Nashor procs in a combo in the early game, and if you're smart and weave in auto attacks, it's extremely efficient. The only advantage of building Lich first over Nashor's is that it has a slightly nicer build path. Bork is an interesting item, which I haven't put much time into testing, and while I believe it is a strong item on its own, it doesn't really have synergy with the other items you build if you're going AP. Both Lich and Nashors become increasingly more powerful the more items you have, since their AP ratios are very good. Meanwhile, Bork's power level remains constant. I think in non-AP assassin builds, Bork might find a place. The other day when I was editing this video, Cat Evolved tweeted out that a mythic item on Cat isn't worth it. He suggests Lichbane into Zhonya's or Banshee, into Magi's or Rabadons. He's even taken Sorcery second in some games. Next patch, Lichbane is likely getting nerfed. Nashor's Tooth is already better in most situations than Lichbane, and that gap is only going to increase. His build is starting to look much more like Irisu's build. It's just Lichbane instead of Nashor's, and Zhonya's before Rabadon's. The builds are already basically the same thing, and hardly anybody is doing it. Cat Evolve is building what I thought was best 2 months ago. I mean, read this tweet, then look at that build. I'm not trying to imply anything. Yeah, things got nerfed and items were changed. I think Nashor Tooth should be more popular than Lichbane. But with this next nerf, surely that will be the case. I mean, come on. It can only take so many nerfs, right? Here's what everything we just talked about looks like. Clearly there's a big difference in damage. I didn't choose to include Hextech Alternator versus what is worse than gold, because it's not that much. It's locked behind a 40-second cooldown, and it just depends how much gold you have on your back. So I'm just choosing to ignore it. But if you wanted an argument for Rockabelt, here it is. It's nothing super impressive once you look at the big picture. Is it worth losing 350 health, some ability haste, a mini dash, some MS, for 11% to 17% more damage at 2 items? Well, that's up to you. You can take Electrocute or Dark Harvest. I really like Sorcery second because you scale so well. As long as you play solid, get your levels, and farm well until your first item, which is about 9 minutes into the game, you should be good to go. That is the case for most builds, but Nashor has more payoff. Now that we see how much better Nashor Rabadon scales compared to Rockabelt Lichbane, we can finally start talking about AD versus AP. But first, if you enjoyed the video so far, consider liking and subscribing. It helps me make more videos, and I very much appreciate it. The entire idea is that AD is strong early, but AP scales better. Do you reach full build every game? No. How much items do you think you finish, not including boots on average? 2 or 3? Well, keep that in mind. It's no surprise Doran's Blade is doing a lot better than Darkseal. Most mages will have lower armor than MR, and opponents will usually take MR against you, so this makes Doran's Blade even better than what it looks like. Pickaxe and Blasting Wand are pretty close, but still in this scenario, what matters more is whether you're going for an extended trade or a short one. Funny enough, one combo actually does the same amount of damage. Once you finish the item, AD spikes much harder than AP. Rockabelt being 21% less damage, and Nashor being 12% less damage. So far, the theory holds up. AD is stronger early, but does it scale worse? It's Kraken dead. Once you hit level 11, your passive increases in AP ratio. This, along with Sorcery Shoes being better in an AP build, makes them pretty even on a squishy opponent. Bork still has the benefits of a slow lifesteal, being better on higher HP opponents, but other than that, yeah, pretty close. Nothing really changes if you start building AD, AP, or a large rod after your first item. Once you finish your second item, Bork into Kraken or Nashor is still pretty close. One thing to note is that you need to W ult in a certain way to get the Kraken proc from your W. If you don't think about it, it likely won't happen. It's kinda weird to play around. Rockabelt into Lichbane is still not outscaling AD, but Nashor Rabadon's sure is. Remember, AD is better early but scales worse according to everybody. Let's look at a 3-item build that is just straight damage. AD is now outscaled by far at 3 items, even by Bork into AP, but Rockabelt isn't even close, even on a target with less armor and MR than these other builds. But this comparison isn't fair because it has Zhonya's, so let's look at the AD builds with and without Zhonya's. Is this AP build outscaling AD yet? Not really, man. Even in this terrible situation where the other dummies have more armor and MR, low health so Bork is less effective, and low MR so that the Magic Pen is effective, is basically the perfect situation for Rockabelt, and the bare minimum effectiveness for Bork and Kraken. Yet they're pretty even. He could even crit, and there's no crits across his entire spreadsheet. How dumb does it sound that you could build Zhonya's on an AD build as your third item, and it is arguably better than Rocket Belt Lichbane into Zhonya's. Here's what this sheet looks like overall. If you want to be stronger early, you could be stronger early with Bork. There's clear times where Bork is stronger than anything else you could build. If you want to scale, you could scale pretty well with Nashers, but Rocket Belt for 350 health and a little dash on Katarina, it's hard for me to rationalize having that over these other opportunities. To recap, people say AD is stronger early and AP outscales later on, but that's not true for most games with the current AP build of Rocket Belt Lichbane into Zhonya's. A lot of people have dropped Kraken and it is a bit undeserved in my opinion. It is still good when your team has too much AP or if the enemy just makes a lot of MR. Nasher into Rabadons is underrated. It just makes so much more sense than Rocket Belt and Lichbane. Bork and Nashers as rush items have clear win conditions and identities that Rocket Belt does not have in my opinion. Also, Bork into AP is actually better than what I thought it would look like. Both Google Sheets will be in the description. I hope you enjoyed watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Katarina content.